Welcome to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection, the City of Crawfordsville's weekly podcast that comes out every Monday morning. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and I'm joined in the studio every week with Mayor Todd Barton to keep our community up to date on current events, city workings, and to hear from community members on a variety of topics. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome back to another episode of Crawfordsville Connection. I'm your host, Sarah Summer, and today I'm joined in the studio by Mayor Todd Barton.
Hello.
Hello. It's just us, but we're doing a general update.
General update. Brandy couldn't be with us today,
Yes.
but we think we know what's going on, and we have her notes.
Yes.
So we should be good.
We should have it all detailed out for us.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, we don't have any major announcements, and everything we'll cover is
No
in this
city
update.
holidays for a while. How
I know.
about that? Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
All right. Well, we could just jump right in then. And the big topic is our 2025 State of the City address.
Yes, we have scheduled that. So I've been working with the folks in Montgomery County government to work on that. We are going to release that on February 27th.
Yes.
I don't know the exact time yet. I'm guessing 7.
Yes. I
Is it
checked with
7?
Dave.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll do 7 p.m.
Okay, so it means it'll be on the radio at 7 p.m. We'll release it on the podcast, platforms at the same time.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're still going to go with that format. We've discussed bringing back a live event, but this just seems to work for everybody, so we're just going to do it this way.
Yeah. It's nice. People can kind of listen at their leisure and
Yeah, that's the challenge with the live format that we were struggling with before the pandemic even happened. Was it makes for an awfully long event.
yeah.
And, when you ask people to sit there for a couple hours, and at times, years ago, it was even longer than that. It'd be closer to 2.5, 3,
Wow.
because we did an economic development update too. So that's kind of a lot where this way people can kind of listen at their leisure and consume it how they wish and
Yes.
stay home in your pajamas if you want.
Right.
Listen, yeah. So, yes, so we're set for February 27th, and there will be an update. I'll do a city update and State of the City, and I believe Commissioner Gard is going to do a county update.
Okay.
I think that's the lineup.
Awesome.
Yep.
And our state legislative session bill monitoring.
Yeah, so as everyone probably knows, the state legislature is in session. This is a long session, which just adds more stress to our lives. We do spend a lot of time. I've been in meetings today for an hour and a half going through stuff. We do spend a lot of time monitoring what's happening over there. A lot of what's proposed, a lot of the bills will impact local government in one way or another, impact our residents, our businesses. So there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces involved in that. And it's early in the session, so it's really premature to conclude anything. But we've heard the governor talk about his priorities. We've heard different people in the legislature talk about their priorities. So it's a lot to monitor, a lot to track. We have a lot of help. Of course, we have our city's organization and groups like that to work on our behalf. So the big issue is obviously property taxes.
Right.
And so that's at the top of the list. And, we just have to make sure that we can still fund local government. So how does that play out? There are a couple of bills, one in the House and one in the Senate, to change municipal city elections and put them on presidential election years, which those of us involved in it are not in favor of, just because we don't want local elections to become about national issues.
Right.
We like the fact that when there's a local election, we can focus on local issues.
Mm-hmm.
And we think combining it with presidential, it'll just get lost in all the national issues, and people won't be talking about the local things that are happening and need to be decided. So we'll monitor that. So a whole host of things going on, and we're monitoring all those, which necessitates a lot of time and quite a few trips back and forth to Indianapolis for the next month or two. But it is what it is, and I know the chamber has a legislative breakfast coming up, so you might check that out and a chance to hear from our legislators themselves.
Absolutely. And Motocross of Nations 2025, we are still planning and moving forward.
We keep it on here just to remind everybody that process is moving forward. Again, that'll be in October, early October. We're moving through the planning process, and I think we have a very good structure in place. We have a lot of, we have one big planning group, and then we have a lot of subgroups. And I know those subgroups have been meeting quite a bit, kind of working on their particular piece of this. So you have to think through everything from A to Z, from public safety all the way to making sure people have a good time while they're here. So, and that the restaurants are prepared, all those kinds of things. So that process is moving along. We're meeting once a month as the whole group. And before long, we'll start meeting twice a month as the whole group.
Yes.
And October will be here before we know it.
Yeah. January's already come and gone, and time's moving fast.
Yeah. And I do want to say that the folks at Indy Sports Corp have been a huge, huge help to us. Really, really appreciate their guidance and assistance. And this is the group in Indianapolis that, organized the Super Bowl when they had it, Final Fours, all those kinds of really big events. So they know how to do this. And they were telling us the other day that in their circles, talking to other states, they're hearing from other states envious that this event is coming to Indiana.
Yeah.
So it has some recognition for sure.
Yeah. I know we're excited.
We are very excited.
Yes. And well, we've talked about this in depth, the proposed animal feeding ordinance.
I leave it on here just because I do get questions. People ask, hey, whatever happened to that? If you recall, there was a proposed ordinance and we ended up, I suggested the council vote it down just so we could kind of clean it up, and that's what they did. We're still working on a couple of things to replace that. The issues, I should say, plural, are still there. We're just trying to make sure we have an ordinance that everybody kind of buys into and makes sense moving forward. I've said this for a while. I think we're pretty close. One particular ordinance would really restrict the feeding of wild animals in the city. And I'm talking about wild animals, not feral cats. I'm talking about raccoon, deer, all that kind of stuff. The science there is pretty solid. The DNR is pretty clear in what they say. You shouldn't be doing that. So that's one approach. And then there's another approach dealing specifically with feral cats, stray cats, all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. That one's a little trickier. And we're really using input from AWL and a group called Cats Limited that does a lot of work in our community. And it's just a slow process. Yeah. I'll just say, it's not, we kind of bounce things back and forth, and there's a lull between those correspondence. And so it's taking a little while. I think it'll come back to the council here at some point.
Okay.
Yep.
And speaking of council, what are some of the other upcoming council issues?
Yeah, there's a few things looming out there that they'll be dealing with. One is still kind of up in the air because it depends on the legislature. We'll probably have to make some tweaks to how we fund our paving and our street repairs each year. And tied to that will probably be how we fund moving forward sidewalk replacements.
Yes.
And we hear from the community all the time. They want a sidewalk program. They want us to start replacing sidewalks. Well, you have to fund that somehow. And so I think you're going to see some things come before the council to address all those issues probably in the next 2 months. Not in February. It's not on the February agenda, but probably by March, April at the latest. So that's on there. We're probably going to make some adjustments to the city ordinance about locations of meetings for all of our various boards and commissions. Years ago, we changed the ordinance to require all city meetings be held in City Hall. I think we're going to kind of undo that and allow some of the meetings to go back to, for example, the park board to meet at the Park and Rec Center instead of City Hall. The utility board to meet at the electric utility. They're still open public meetings. They still have to accommodate everybody. It just makes it a lot easier for staff and kind of moves things around a little bit. So you'll probably see something about that pretty soon. And then at some point, and it's not in the near future, the city ordinance will probably, or city council will probably start looking at the issue of short-term rentals. And I don't know how that's going to look. I'll just tell you, every community in the state of Indiana is trying to figure this out right now. And so we're kind of looking at the others. There's no easy answers with that one, right? And so it's easy to say, well, I want to be able to rent my property whenever I want, however I want.
Right.
However, people are very quick to speak up when their neighbor's doing it.
Yes.
So we're kind of caught in the middle there. We're trying to feel our way through that. So those are some of the things looming out there for the city council.
Okay. And with some of those meeting locations changing, that plays into our meeting live streaming.
Yes. So a state statute that was passed a couple of years ago by the legislature, starting July 1st, and maybe sooner, but at least by July 1st, we will start live streaming most of our city meetings.
Yes.
Okay. So it will be, you're the expert here, on the website.
Yes.
People go to the website, click that they want to watch the meeting when it's happening. So if city council is at 6 p.m., you go on there at 6 p.m., click it, and you can watch it.
Yep. It'll be live streamed right there.
Yep.
And then On the flip side of that, if you miss the meeting, you can also go back and watch the recording.
Yes. So that recording will be on there for a couple of months. So you can go back and watch those meetings. So that'll be City Council, Board of Works, Plan Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals,
Redevelopment Commission.
Redevelopment Commission. All those will be on there, and you can live stream them, or you can go back and watch the video later. So that's happening. Those meetings that are moving out of City Hall, those probably will not be live streamed, at least for now. So this is going to be a work in progress.
Yes.
So bear with us. Some cities have been working through this already and have found every glitch imaginable. So we're kind of being a little deliberate in how we're approaching it, but that'll be starting before too long. It'll be interesting to see how many people partake.
Right.
I know, let's say a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago, the paper, Montgomery County, was live streaming on Facebook the city council meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they might have done it. They did it for a few months. There really was no viewership, so they kind of stopped doing it. So we'll see how it goes this time, but it's required by statute, so we'll be doing it.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And our 180 makeover grant, that is the grant for the Masonic Cornerstone.
Yes. So this was some Ready One funding when we were still in that central Indiana region. Some funding that became available to basically help fix up a historic building in your community. We thought the Masonic Cornerstone was a perfect fit for this. There's a pretty high match requirement, so it wasn't like it was just going to hand you money. You had to have raised quite a bit already yourself, and they had done that. So we paired up with them. We've moved through that process, and a contractor has signed a contract, and that work will start happening. It's confusing to people because they'll see that the city signed a contract with the contractor.
Right.
The city has to be the conduit, the fiscal agent for this grant. We're just basically a pass-through. So the money is coming from, this funding from the state, and then it comes through us, and then it goes to the Cornerstone, and they pay their contractor. So Cornerstone raised all the money for the match. The city doesn't have any money in it, but we are the grant recipient, officially the grant recipient and the contract holder. I think this money is being used for electrical work, prep for the elevator changes, and fire alarm systems. Some of the things that need to happen, there's a long, long list with that facility, and this will check a few more things off.
Yes.
Yep.
And coupled with that, there's a 180 in color grant.
Yes, very similar funding, Ready One funding for art, and there will be another new mural in the downtown, and the funding is in place for that. So they had to work through a process where they solicited artists who want to do this, and they had, I think, an overwhelming response. And they narrowed that down to several, then they narrowed it even more. So they have 3 finalists. All 3 of those finalists are submitting concepts, and there's a local committee that will review those and decide which one they choose in the end.
Yeah.
So the hope is to move through that process, and this work happened this summer.
Awesome.
And the location for that, I should say, this is hard to describe. If you've been around a while, the Strand parking lot, which is right across from China Inn, that if you look north, right, on Green Street, that brick building there by the alley.
Yep. So
that property owner has agreed, and that'd be the location for the mural. And we don't know what the mural will be. We're still working on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that.
But it's a very good committee, very good group of people working on it. I'm sure they'll come up with something that really fits our community.
Awesome. And Shorts Nature Park, it's 2025.
Yeah. Well, we've been saying for a while that we kind of had that on hold, and we were going to pick it up once we got some of these other projects done, and we have done that. So we are moving ahead with Shorts Nature Park. The first piece of that puzzle was really deciding on a design firm, and we had a lot of internal discussion about that, and we've decided on a design firm. So we know how we're going to move forward there. We have a meeting in the next week or 2 to meet with them to kick off the process. Also had communication with Mr. Shorts himself, so he's up to speed on where we're at, and we will really work on designing that in the coming months. Will that mean construction in 25? I don't know, but at least we'll start the process. We might get to it in 25. It might be pushed back a little bit more. Not really sure yet, but that park's one I want to really get it right.
Right.
Right. There's a lot in play there. because of the Sugar Creek Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may have to move things around and stuff like that. So let's take our time, get it right, and it's something that will be benefiting our community for decades and decades to come.
Yes.
So exciting, it's finally moving forward. We have a few extra hours here and there to devote to the Shorts Nature Park.
Yes. We took a couple off the list and now
that's the way it works. We kind of have things in the chute. And not only the hours, obviously all these things cost money. So we kind of have to pace ourselves and time ourselves how we approach these projects.
Okay. And our wayfinding project.
Wow, we're going to talk about wayfinding, and Brandy's not here.
I know. She's probably happy about that.
She probably is. She reports that we have our permit for MnDOT. So they're working on a pre-construction meeting, and she thinks we'll see some work beginning very soon. I imagine, like everything else, a little bit weather dependent, but it'd be nice to check that one off the list. And I've always said about the wayfinding, it's going to be a game changer for our community when it's in place. When you travel to communities that have that comprehensive system of signs, it just makes you feel comfortable in that community, and you know how to get around, and you know where the things are that you need. That's what will happen here in Crawfordsville. It
helps tell a story in essence too. You know exactly where you are and how to get from point A to point B without, feeling lost.
Our downtown especially is confusing for the visitor, and we know that. Where can I park? And is this a 2 hour, a 4 hour? Is it free?
Right.
All those things are confusing. The one-way streets,
yes,
we all take for granted, but for the visitor, those are very confusing. So this will help. And we've got, we have so much to offer. Think about the museums and all the different things in our community. And we don't really promote it that well.
Yeah.
So this will help all of those things.
And 231, the north of downtown NDOT project.
So you might recall last year there was a project they shifted, everything to one side of 231 from the downtown all the way out to the interstate, and then they did some work, and then it kind of sat, and then they ended up removing it all. They ran into some utility conflicts. Our understanding is that they have been able to work through most of those this winter, and they will pick that project back up again sometime in the spring, which means 231 will become condensed again, right, on one side, and then when that other side's done, they'll shift it back over. We don't have an exact timeline. We're working with them to try to understand that. I don't think they know the timeline yet until they get some of these things worked out. So the ultimate goal, and they've given us every assurance, is that it's done and complete before October.
Right. Why is that important?
Well, think about it. Yeah, we all agree. Like when you think about the traffic for motocross the nations, we really can't have that choked down and constricted. It's going to take all of our capacity. So that's what's going on with that. We don't have a lot of clear answers, but we will certainly update you when we do.
Yes. And we have been working on a study for the Southside Corridor with the county.
We have, and it's kicked off and underway. And what we're doing there is just thinking about future growth and how everything can align. If you think about what we've done with Purple Heart coming from 47 to 231 and 231 to Ladoga Road, think about what the county has done with Comfort Drive coming off a New Core Road over past Temper Sealy. You can see, if you look at a map, how all that starts to kind of match up. And so, we know that growth is going to happen in those areas. We want to at least plan ahead. Now, this is not to say, we're going to plan out that, hey, the road's going to go through here. We're going to take, this house is going to have to be torn down, all that. That's not what we're doing. It's just thinking about, as things happen,
right?
How do we make sure that they line up and match up? Because, and I know I've said this many times, but that has not happened in our community. And if you look around, you see all these neighborhoods that don't match up. It's a hodgepodge, and we don't want that to happen in the future. So we're working through that. It also means, like, thinking about the utilities. For example, the city operates a sewer system. Mm-hmm. The county operates one in the New Core Corridor. Where does it make sense to push it back to the city sewer system? Where does it make sense to push it over to the New Core system, the county system? So we have to kind of figure out where those lines are at and how all this plays out. So that process has started. It will take a few months, but it will not change anything in the immediate future, but it'll give us some kind of roadmap moving forward in the future. When somebody comes in and says, I want to put a neighborhood here, we're like, okay, well, these are the parameters because we want it to line up with everything else that's happened.
And the high school lift station.
Yeah, so the lift station is a wastewater sewer lift station. They call it the high school station because it was put in when the new high school was built. We say new high school. That's been a number of years ago now. So most people don't think of it as a new high school anymore. And it was really designed to just kind of serve the high school. But a lot of growth has happened on the south side, and we put more and more flow into that lift station. And that lift station picks it up and pumps it into the main system to get at the treatment plant. So we need to upgrade that lift station to upsize it and give it more capacity. To do that, we're moving it from the north side of 47 to the south side. So on that south side of 47, between Pizza Hut and the high school, you're going to see some construction happening. They're going to have to clear a few trees, not many, and they'll be building the new lift station right there. So you're going to see all that activity probably pretty soon, within the next month. The contracts have been signed, it's been bid, the contract's been signed. They're just going through the permitting process, and then they'll start work on that.
Okay.
I know we'll get calls. What's going on?
Yes, what is happening?
It's a sewer lift station.
And the Skank Road project, what is that construction timeline?
Yeah, so we've been talking about this for a very, very long time. So this is the extension of Skank Road from 50 South down to State Road 32 on the west side, create that north-south corridor, open that area up for residential development. This is unlike Purple Heart, this is a project that's funded through a grant from NDOT and Federal Highway. So it's a lot slower process. It is slated. So we've acquired all the right-of-way that we need for the road. That's a huge step. That is done, and it's slated to what they call letting, means go to bid this summer. So you'll see that go to bid this summer. And then once those contracts are signed, construction some of it could start this fall, but the bulk of it will probably be next year.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we'll see that connection made. We've been talking about that in this community for decades. So that'd be nice to see that actually happen. And I get asked frequently, why is that important? Everything works fine. Well, it does, but it doesn't, right? So if you think about it, there's not a north-south corridor all the way from Grant Avenue all the way out to County Road 200 West. Now, there kind of is because everybody drives through Donley or Lakeside, right? But that's private property. It's not really a through road. And they could stop that at any time if they choose to. So we really need a north-south corridor. And it's also, it kind of works now, but we're missing a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for growth in that area.
Yeah.
That just don't happen because there's no road, there's no access.
Yeah.
And it's going to eliminate the intersection where 50 South or Big Four Arch Road comes into Skank Road. If you drive through that area, it's kind of down in a bowl. It's a really awkward intersection. That intersection will go away. That'll be a big safety advantage for us.
Okay. And Market Street Railroad Crossing, we've talked about this. We were awarded the grant.
Yeah, we were awarded the grant for the first 2 phases. So on the federal side, there are 4 phases to a project like this, and we were awarded the first 2. It's important to note that you have to do those first 2. If you're going to get money for construction, you have to go through these first 2 steps. So that's big. We have a meeting in the next couple of weeks. I'm losing track of time here, folks, but next couple of weeks, I have to look at my schedule every day to see what's going on. Next couple of weeks, Brandy and I will be meeting virtually with Federal Railroad to go through the next steps and understand that process. Basically, what will happen is we'll have to use a consultant to help us with this planning process. So we'll go through the federal procurement process to choose that consultant. So what firm do we think is going to do the best job for the best price to help guide us through that? So that'll be the first step, and then we will start in earnest to go through this planning process, which will really prepare us to apply for actual construction funding.
Yeah.
And that planning process, all this together, is about a 1.5-year process. So it's not real long, but if you think about it in terms of government and a roadway and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty compressed, right? We have been asked quite a bit, and it's a very good question, with all the chatter going on about, cuts to federal funding and how all that plays out. How does that impact this? And I'll just tell you, we don't know, right? So it depends on how you read it. We read conflicting things. We've not been told that anything's any different. So we're going to continue down this path unless we're told otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep.
And while we wait for, figuring out what that solution is, we're looking at different railroad crossing monitoring technology.
Yeah, I talked about this a while back. The technology is there today to monitor a rail crossing and alert motorists before they get to that crossing. So there'd be signage saying, hey, there's a train up here. We were really looking at that with the Market Street crossing, which is rather complicated because you've got people coming from a lot of different directions there, right? With the announcement of the grant, we're kind of tapping the brakes on that. I don't want to go and invest in a system there knowing that we could potentially eliminate that problem in the coming years, right? And it's not inexpensive to do this. However, we're still looking at that technology on the south side with Elmore Street. We've heard from the industries in that area that it is an issue, and I get it. Like if you're on Mill Street, you turn and you go down Elmore, headed east, you don't know there's a train until you get a ways down there, and then if you can't wait, you have to turn around and go back. And there are 2 rail crossings on Elmore Street, so a lot can go wrong there. So we are looking at that technology for that area, which would alert people at Mill Street and over by Grace and Shady Lane, like there's a train blocking Elmore Street, seek an alternate route. So we'll see. But technology is amazing today that can monitor that crossing and just start activating those lights and tell you to find another route.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked a little bit about this, going towards city council and talking through funding for this, but our sidewalk program, we're hoping to kick that off soon.
Yeah, we will be kicking it off. So we have everything in place, and the funding is in place for this first year. So in the next couple of months, for sure, we'll start that process. And what I'm talking about with the sidewalk program is to increase the city's financial participation in replacing sidewalks. Sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner. There's a lot of confusion. People think the city does sidewalks. Here, at least in ordinance, they don't. But we're going to increase our level of participation to increase the incentive to get sidewalks replaced. Yeah. And so we have a formula for doing that. It's all in place, and we'll really be pushing that out aggressively here as the weather breaks, and really try to get some of these sidewalks replaced in our community, because with it being the responsibility of the property owner, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic. We talk a lot about trails and walkability and stuff, and then we have sidewalk issues. So it's going to take a number of years, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So if the funding's in place for this year, and then think about, the city council considering how we move forward with all this funding, I think we found a way to create more of a perpetual funding stream so that we can chip away a little bit a year and keep working on this.
Great. And our Shelley Drain, what is the project status on this?
It is moving forward. So the contract's in place. That work is scheduled to happen. They're moving through. I think they've ordered some of the material. They're waiting on that to come in and waiting on the weather to really kind of break. I mean, we have some good days right now, but we also have some bad days. And when you're doing that kind of digging and stuff, if it's muddy, you can really make a lot more of a mess. So I think they're kind of waiting on those things. I know in the last few days, there was a meeting with neighbors and property owners in that specific area where the work will happen to kind of really lay out the process for them so they understand what to expect. So as soon as the weather breaks, you're going to see that happen. That work won't take too long once they get started. And I just can't imagine what it's going to be like to never even talk about Shelley Drain again. Just put that issue behind us. That issue has plagued our community for decades, and it's going to get fixed and taken care of.
Awesome. And that will help, potential growth on the east side as well.
Oh, for sure. We hear a lot about, why don't this happen on the east side? Why don't those things happen on the east side? And there are several factors involved, but one of those factors is the drainage, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. The new Dollar General on 136. All that property right there hasn't been developed it just sits there, right? Well, drainage was the key driving factor to that. And the Dollar General was able to get some waivers and tie into the drainage, but it would not have happened if they didn't know we didn't have a clear plan to address Shelley.
Right.
So you have to do that. And I think you'll start to see the rest of that property develop, and builders and developers more comfortable with doing things once they know this has been taken care of.
Awesome. And Hamilton Street drainage work.
Yeah, so Hamilton Street drainage is tied to Shelley Drain. It actually flows into the Shelley Drain. Hamilton Street is that very short street that runs from Darlington Avenue, right next to the railroad, down by Morgan's Glass Dairy up to that area, right? And so that there's a drainage ditch behind there between like Allen Monument and the railroad that we've had a lot of problems with over the years. And there's a lot of water coming into that area from different directions. And then we constantly have issues. So we're going to rebuild that drainage system behind there. We've started to do the work. We've ran into some permitting issues that we need to sort through. Those will get resolved. Once we get the permitting stuff worked out, literally within a day or two, they'll probably have the work done. And again, we can put that issue behind us.
Yes.
Why is it important? Well, it's not most of the time, but when we have those really heavy rain events, we've actually seen flooding in those businesses there, water in their businesses. So wrestled with it a long time. We've got a solution we're going to get taken care of.
Great. And last month, the update was that we were still working on this project for Diamond Ridge streets to become city streets, and it's done.
It's done. They are city streets now. So Diamond Ridge subdivision is on Traction Road. There's probably about 100 homes there. That subdivision has existed for a while. There's been this confusion about a lot of things had to happen for those to actually become city-owned streets instead of owned by the developer. We've been able to work through that process in a combination effort between the city, the homeowners association, and the developer. That's done now. They're now city streets. So they'll have city snow removal, city maintenance. They already had city trash collection. So all those things are in place, and hopefully we don't have any issues out there.
Yes.
Yeah. It's nice to finally get that wrapped up. Another one of those things that's dragged on far too long.
Yes. And Sugar Creek Erosion Grant, we have applied for phase 2 and 3 together.
Yes, sort of. So we completed phase 1, if you recall, this year, where we bought some houses on Wayne Avenue. Those have been demolished and gone, and they're no longer threatened by erosion, and people, I think, have been made whole financially and are able to get out of harm's way. So that's good. Phases 2 and 3 are more houses on Wayne and some houses in Sugar Cliff. Same scenario. We decided to combine phases 2 and 3 into one, just because of our experience with phase 1. It is a dreadfully slow process. It's federal money through the state, and it takes a very long time. So we don't want to drag that out any longer than we have to. We combined them. So we did what's called the pre-application, and we were put on hold. We have now been given the green light to do the formal application, and I think it's due in the next month. So we are applying for phases 2 and 3, which would, again, it's a voluntary program, so it would give the opportunity for homes and properties in harm's way to take the appraised value, and the grant would help us pay for the appraised value. Buy their home, get them out of harm's way. They're not losing their money. Think about this. You bought a home, you paid on it all these years, and now it's basically worth nothing.
Right.
It's going to fall in the creek. So hugely important to those neighborhoods. Again, it is voluntary. We actually had some property owners in phase 1 that said, no, I'm just going to stay here. That's fine. They're just losing that financial piece of it. So yeah, we will be applying, or are in the process of applying, for phases 2 and 3.
Okay.
But don't get in a hurry. I know Brandy's taking care of that. I know she's talked to a lot of the homeowners, and it's really hard because their lives are kind of put on hold, and we understand that's incredibly stressful. It's just our hands are tied by that federal/state process, which is very, very slow.
And our new housing developments with Arbor Homes in the Hawkview neighborhood.
Yeah, that's moving right along. The streets are in. We expect they'll probably start pulling permits for demo homes anytime, probably weather dependent. But yeah, that's all going. So if you
It's awesome.
drive out there and take a look, there's a lot of room there for development. We also know there will be residential development on the new Purple Heart Parkway. That property is in various stages of being acquired by different developers, and most of them have housing plans there.
Okay.
So a lot of housing coming to the south side. Again, why do we need the housing? Well, we have a shortage, and we had a presentation at our Workforce Alliance from data from the real estate community, which was eye-opening, I think, for everybody there. There's definitely a need here. And think about that job growth we talk about all the time. The jobs are coming. We need a place for people to live.
Yes. And with some of this new stuff too, we've talked about this before, it causes this ripple effect.
It does, yeah. And it's not just about the houses coming into those neighborhoods, but as people what we see in the data, there are a lot of people wanting to move up. And as they move up, then that opens up homes at a lower price point in other neighborhoods. So we do hear a lot about the interest rate question. Is that having an effect or not? And yes, it is. It's causing people to pause a little bit more. But we're still seeing a lot of activity, and we're hopeful that those rates start to come back down.
Yes. And we're working with the county on the Thrive housing program.
We are. Actually just met with commissioners to discuss this here recently. And so the goal there is to create a program to really help us with these smaller types of developments. So if you think about Hawkview and Arbor, that's a very large development. We have mechanisms to make the numbers work there, right? But when you talk about, we're going to do 6 houses here or 10 houses there or 3 houses here, it's a lot harder to do.
Right.
So Thrive is a group out of Terre Haute area that has a really robust system of doing that. It's been very successful in other counties. So we're kind of adapting that here. And for me, it's really important because I've had some areas in the city that we could really redevelop. And I get asked about that a lot. Instead of, why are we going to go build on the edge of the city? Why don't we rebuild in some of these areas? And it's a very good question. And the short answer is the numbers don't work.
Yeah.
So a program like Thrive's help us get the numbers where they need to be to make it work.
And more housing coming, the Ben-Hur building and proposed on the south side.
So there's, as everybody knows, several hundred apartments proposed on the south side on Purple Heart. That's still in design. We expect that developer's coming back to us pretty soon to talk about that. Ben-Hur building is moving right along.
It is.
We're going to take it off the list here someday. It's going to be cool.
That's going to be crazy.
It's been on my list for a very long time, since before I became mayor, actually. So yeah, the Ben-Hur building, just talked to the developer the other day. He's thinking probably leases in April, maybe March, but probably April. And that project will be wrapped up.
It's going to be crazy.
It's crazy. It looks amazing if you go by there. And it's not even, a lot of the outside stuff still has to happen, but just the windows alone look really cool. And that sidewalk all around there will be ripped out in the end, and a whole new system of sidewalks and entrances and stuff will be constructed. So a lot of work coming yet, but it's getting close to being done, which again adds more apartments, market rate apartments in our community. And we are seeing, a lot of activity on that front. We were just notified that one of the apartment complexes here is making the shift from really the subsidized income base to market rate.
Yeah.
Which I know puts pressure in that, for the folks trying to find the subsidized income base, but it's a very clear signal that your community is changing, that the economy is changing in your community, and that business thinks more people are in the market for those basically market rate apartments.
Which, I mean, we have
hardly
healthy, any.
Right. It's a healthy sign. It's a very healthy sign for your community.
Yeah. And retail recruitment activities.
I know I sound like a broken record here, but there's still a lot going on. A lot of moving parts kind of with that. I think you're going to see some announcements before long. It's just really hard to say in that world. It's so unpredictable, but we continue to have a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions. Something was going to break loose. I mean, think about all that property down along Purple Heart and 231, and even some stuff on the east side. There's stuff in the works.
Yeah.
And you're going to see some things happen there. Retail in Crawfordsville will look pretty different in the next few years. So stay tuned.
Yes. And with that, Aldi is moving right along.
They are. If you go by there, I was telling somebody, I think over the holidays, I think they worked every day except Christmas Day itself.
I think so.
Yeah, they were there.
Weekends and everything.
They were there on Christmas Eve working. I saw them. So, that's moving right along. We've not been given an exact opening date for that, but certainly it looks like it's going to be spring, summer, somewhere in there. So that helps with that grocery capacity issue we've had. But more is needed, and we're working on it. So
yes. And the Dollar General on the east side has some of that fresh grocery.
Yeah, I had this on here last month. I thought I'd leave it on here this month just to kind of wrap it up. There were a lot of questions. There was a lot of confusion about that project. It was supposed to have grocery, and then somehow it had gotten taken out. And there were very good discussions between us and Dollar General Corporate. and I have to give them full credit. They came back, fixed it, made it right, put that option back in. So I was there for the ribbon cutting, stopped in to check on things before. They have fresh fruits, vegetables, those kinds of things. So, and I think just from looking at it, I think half that store or more is grocery.
Wow.
It's a big store. So that is really good and a good offering for the east side.
Yeah.
And I know I said this before, we've heard very loud and clear from the community, you want those kind of things on the east side. Now it's important that you use it.
Yes.
Because if they put fresh fruits and vegetables in and nobody buys them, they're not going to keep doing it. So, but last I heard, it was being well supported. And
Great.
in fact, one of the city councilmen told me he went in there to buy some fresh fruits and vegetables, and they had sold out of most things.
Wow.
So that's awesome. And they had told us it will take a while to figure out inventory. So we may run out at times. We got to figure out what the demand is here. So give them some time to figure that out. But we're really excited to have that on the east side.
It's pretty awesome. And economic development activity.
Yeah. It's interesting. We're working quite a few things for expansion projects. New projects in the pipeline is kind of quiet right now, which tends to happen around the holidays and then into the early part of the year. So, we're just going to stay tuned. We see a lot of leads for really massive things with, thousands of jobs and massive electrical requirements and massive square footage and acreage requirements, which aren't going to work here.
Right.
So we're just kind of monitoring that. Our real focus is on our existing stuff and how we help them grow. And then if we can throw in new stuff in the mix here and there that fit, like Timber Sealy fit for sure,
Yes.
we'll be doing that. So yeah, not a lot to report there. There's activity happening. We're just kind of working through some of those and, continuing that dialogue with our existing employers about expansions.
Well, speaking of some of the activity from, announcements last year, we've got Weaver, Ira Whiskey, and then Fairfield Inn. Do we have updates on this?
Yeah, we had so many announcements last year.
It was
hard
crazy.
to keep track of. I think, the interesting thing, so both Weaver and Ira Whiskey are under construction. So if you drive out through the Commerce Park area, you will see the dirt moving on both of those projects, which is exciting. The Fairfield Inn has not broken ground yet, but they are going through the kind of the part leading up to that, where they're going through site layout, site design, bringing that back to the city so we make sure it fits our code and everything. So that process is underway. I think you'll see them break ground pretty soon as well. So, and then the really big project we announced, the expansion to Penguin Random House is under construction. If you've not been out there, 47 and then Memorial Drive, that area, that is it's a massive project. Yeah. So if you get a chance, drive by there and check that out.
And out in the Commerce Park, we have transitioned the Ivy Tech facility to be now called the Crawfordsville Career Academy.
Yeah, still featuring Ivy Tech. They're still in the building. We were able to add in other things and utilize all the space. So a lot of our career tech ed programs with the high schools are located there now. The leadership for career tech ed is based out of there now. So it's kind of a one stop under one roof. We are going into the apprenticeship model, if you will, in Indiana. So a lot of things happening, and every community is trying to figure this out now because the graduation requirements for high school is changing and so on. We were fortunate. We already had the bricks and mortar and space to do it. So it's still a work in progress, but if you drive out by there, you'll see that the sign has changed, Crawfordsville Career Academy, and we'll be very focused on those, high school students, middle school students, and even the adult workforce and how we prepare them for careers. Yeah. And we have all kinds of opportunity in this community. It's trying to figure out that pipeline and how we prepare people for those careers.
Yeah, and it brought some life back out to that building.
It did. That building didn't have much activity.
Yeah.
Because Ivy Tech had changed a lot. A lot of people were doing online classes. And so it was really underutilized. And as their lease came up, we really had good conversations about how do we utilize the space more efficiently. And now if you drive by there, it's pretty cool. The parking lot's pretty full most days. That's exactly what we want to see happen.
And public transportation study, there's been a couple times this has been brought up in the community.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there. Cheryl Morphew has been leading that on the city side. And so a couple of things in play there. One is we've heard from our industries for a while that transportation is an issue. And if you think about it, you have entry-level workers and maybe they're sharing rides or, they carpool, all those kind of things happen. Once they've been there a while, they have the financial resources maybe to have a car, but that first year could be kind of rough.
Yeah.
And when we talk to some of them about their turnover in the first year, that's really kind of an underlying theme. Like, we hire this person and they show up and everything's great and they're trying, but they're depending on somebody else for a ride.
Yeah.
And then that ride falls through one day. And then it falls through a second time or a third time. And now they get these occurrences and next thing it just unravels. And so we're trying to figure that out. So we're not talking about a system of buses and bus stops in Crawfordsville. We're not that big, but a very targeted system that would pick up groups of people in certain locations and take them to our industries.
Yeah.
So that's one piece of this. The other piece is our sunshine vans. So we have our sunshine vans. Everybody loves those. It's a great thing. Transportation for seniors. That program is called the 5310, Section 5310 program. That's federal money that comes through NDOT and then to the city. We have been told that program will go away in a couple years. So we're kind of scrambling to figure this out. What we're exploring is a transition to a 5311 program, which is not only seniors, but could be workforce transportation as well. So we could kind of fix both of these things at the same time, right? And we've known for a while, the sunshine vans, they do a great job, but from the financial standpoint, it's not as solid as we want it to be. I'll just say that. So this will kind of help us shore up every aspect of this. So the city, in combination with the League of Women Voters and the county commissioners, are doing this study to really think about how we can transition to sunshine vans to a 5311 and at the same time pull in this workforce piece and address transportation for workforce where needed.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts. That sounds simple, but there's a lot of moving parts there.
Awesome.
And we will be, I guess I should say also, once we kind of figure that out, but in the process, we will be applying for different federal NDOT funding to help us with that program. And when we talk about sunshine vans now, it's important to remember that's largely pretty much almost grant funded.
Yeah.
So we've got to think about how we can continue that funding stream there as well. Yeah.
Okay. And Fusion 54, there is going to be some use adjustments for the building.
Yeah, we're working through that. In fact, we just met a few hours ago to work through that. So the building's been very popular, gets used a lot. And so we're just trying to, we go through and we're just evaluating, are we really staying true to our core mission in that building? And the answer today is probably not. We've probably drifted from it. So we're just going to make some adjustments. I say this all the time, and I know people get tired of hearing it. It's not a community center, right? It has a very narrow focus. It was paid for, through business taxes, and they're very focused on growth of the community and on entrepreneurship and how do we assist businesses, those kind of things. So we're still going to have that focus. We're just trying to make sure we clean up some of the use, just because it has become, there's too much, really. Yeah. And so we kind of have to focus it in and stay focused on that core mission. So you may see some things happen where some of the nonprofits won't be meeting there, who've been meeting there before. We're going to send letters out to kind of explain that rationale to them. We're not trying to be a bad neighbor. We just, there's only so much space and so much time, and we really want to focus on that community growth piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And the Montgomery County Early Learning Center.
Yeah, if you drive by there, I drive by there every day.
Yes.
Yeah, it's moving right along. They are tentatively targeting March for the opening of that center. So we'll just stay tuned. The Montgomery County Community Foundation has the lead on that and is really overseeing that to make sure that it stays on schedule and everything. But another really, really big thing to check off our list in this community, another very important workforce issue in our community. That was probably the top thing we heard when we started talking to employers about the lack of childcare options. So does it solve our problem in and of itself? No, but it's a huge step in the right direction. And I think that coupled with, the robust system that we have through the foundation to assist our existing providers, all the daycares that are out there now, those two things together are pretty powerful. Okay.
Our youth council.
Yeah, so we brought the youth council back. We had a youth council made up of high school students pre-pandemic. Pandemic ruined it like everything else. But it's back now. We just really tried to rethink it. Before we were trying to lead it, and that's not really our thing. So we brought in a facilitator, and he leads youth councils in several communities around the state. So he's facilitating for us. We support it, but really trying to engage, and we have youth from all three of our high schools there, engage them in the conversation to really get their input about what they think about our community today and moving forward, and the kind of things we need to add to our community. I will tell you the takeaway we have immediately from day one is the communication barrier between what we're doing and how they consume information is huge.
Yeah.
Because the first few meetings, they're talking about all these things that they would like to see happen in the community, and we're just like scratching our head, like we're doing those things, but they don't know it.
Right.
So trying to figure out some of those communication gaps as well. But yeah, it's nice to have their input and their perspective, which is no surprise to anyone, is very different than the perspective of people my age or your age even.
Yes.
Yep.
And Ready 2.0.
Yeah, so we're in the Greater Lafayette region now with Ready 2.0, and we've been kind of on hold a little bit, I'll just say, for two reasons. One, we can't spend Ready 2 money until Ready 1 reaches a certain threshold. And in our Greater Lafayette region, we were waiting on, basically, Purdue had some really large projects that ate up a large percentage of that Ready 1 funding. So they were not at that threshold. They're getting closer and closer all the time. So I think, this spring, you'll see that Ready 2 threshold met, or Ready 1 threshold met. We can start spending Ready 2. So what's that mean for our community? We will be doing things to support growth and housing. So one project's already been approved, and that is water extension for the new core towers and structures. So it's not paying for it entirely, but it's a contribution towards that project. And then we will be doing infrastructure work to support housing developments, is what we're going to propose with the remainder for our county, per se. But stay tuned on all that. And then, of course, the other factor there is just change in administrations. And we really don't have answers there. Will there be a change in direction on how we're supposed to do this with the new governor and his administration? We don't know. Yeah. We've not been getting any guidance there yet.
Okay. And Ready 2.0, there's also a Lilly endowment funding as well.
There is, and we've worked on a joint application with Wabash College, the city and Wabash there. We had some constructive feedback on that application. We'll be tweaking that and probably resubmit it this summer. We're required to wait 6 months between applications. So, and really what we're looking at is how we improve the housing stock, between the campus and the downtown, basically. And that corridor, if you will. If you think about, if you drive through Crawfordsville on 231, you really don't see Wabash College. No. It's hard to even know it's there except for the little green sign. So how do we improve that presence over on the highway?
Yeah.
That would be included in that as well. And I don't know how you improve it. I'm not saying I do. I'm saying we would think through that process.
And the EPA Brownfields Grants 2.0.
Yeah, so we were awarded another EPA Brownfields grant. We had one already. And this grant helps us assess properties in our community that are, former contaminated sites, or people think they might be contaminated sites, so they just sit there and nothing happens. There's a lot of unknown in those sites, and this gets rid of the unknown and creates all these known factors. So you could buy it knowing what exactly exists and what doesn't. And what we find is typically the problem is not as bad as people think it is.
Right.
I'm talking about former gas station sites and former factory sites, those kind of things. So we were very successful in phase 1. We're doing a phase 2 grant now, which will just allow more studies on those sites and really help us market those sites and get them in hands where somebody's going to get rid of that old gas station and put something productive there.
Yeah.
So we've been awarded. We're in the process of selecting the consultant who's going to help us, and we're waiting on some guidance before we do that, and we should do that pretty soon. Okay.
Our downtown maintenance position.
Yeah, we've talked about that for a while. We've hired someone.
Awesome.
He starts, this comes out on Monday. He's starting Monday. So, so we'll be going through the process of, him kind of learning the lay of the land in the downtown and what needs to be done. I think it's going to be good. That'll give us somebody downtown really paying attention every day to make sure the downtown looks nice. Yeah. Bottom line, right? So bear with us. I mean, there's going to be a learning curve. We're probably going to miss some things here and there. The street department has done a fantastic job. When Larry Hunt retired, they picked it up and we've been doing it. So they've done a great job, and we'll be transitioning to this new person. So if something gets missed, cut us some slack. It's going to take a while to figure it all out. There's a lot going on in the downtown, so a lot of things to learn. But we've got someone hired, and we're excited to move forward on that.
Great. Our golf course barn getting a new roof.
It is, and I apologize. I've not been out there, so I don't know exactly where we are in the process, but I know it's happening. That barn, you can see it from Milligan Park. The roof was shot. The roof structure was shot. So we had to make a decision. Are we going to just tear it down, or are we going to replace this roof structure? We decided we still needed the storage for several things, so we were going to replace the roof structure. So that will be done pretty soon.
Okay. And the old landfill is getting a barn replacement.
It is at some point. We're working through that. So if you've ever been out to the Yardway site, you know there's like a pole barn there. That was the original maintenance facility for the landfill. So it's been there a rather long time. It's in really, really bad shape. Probably wouldn't take more than a good breeze to blow it over some days. So we're going to replace that. There's a lot of equipment the street department stores there. We just need a better building. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate. A pole barn there, probably be a gravel floor, just to keep some of that equipment in. We really gave consideration to maybe we should just build that. If we're going to rebuild it, build it at the street department itself.
Right.
But that's not going to work out. It's very misleading. If you look at the street department over on Vermont Street, between there and Dairylicious, you think, wow, they have all this land and they have a lot of ability to do things. We really don't. We own a small fraction of that. Most of it's owned by the railroad.
Yeah.
And they let us use it, and we lease part of it, but it's not really ours. So that kind of ties our hands on what we can do there.
Okay.
But anyway, that process, we're looking at it right now. I don't know what the timing is going to be. We're actually meeting in the next few days to kind of talk about that timing, because we have to match it up with the seasons and also with the flow of money.
Yeah.
The flow of money, that's important.
Right. You need money to do these projects.
We have to have money to do these projects. We know what route we're going to go with it. It's just timing it right now.
Okay. Well, we made it through our list. Is there anything else you want to add?
Wow. You're working on year in review, right?
Yes, year in review. And that will kind of couple with our State of the City address, where we've worked with each different department to pull out some of the highlights of the things that happened in 2024, show it by numbers, some of the other little things that have happened that we don't necessarily go over regularly in our general updates. So that will come out on our website, and we'll also do some sort of social media push with that as well.
The preview looks awesome. So
thank you.
It's going to be awesome.
Yes.
It'll be right there for you to look at.
Yes, we look forward for the community to see those things. It's stuff that we don't always recognize, the number of EMS calls or how many tons of leaves the street department mulched up this year.
How many takeoffs and landings at our airport.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. So
how many rounds of golf we played at the city golf course? Yeah. I saw that one today.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot going on, and you can find all those things on Yodel, our Community Connections calendar and newsfeed. And I actually just got that updated, and it's added onto our city website now. So if you're looking for something to do, you can find our community calendar right on the City of Crawfordsville's website as well.
Remember, a year ago, we were talking about a new website, and we did it.
Yes.
And now you know why, because we can attach this calendar to it, one-stop shop. And we talk about the live streaming of the meetings.
Yeah.
You'll just be able to go to the website. It's all going to be right there.
Yeah. This website, it's much more user-friendly than what we had before. And
even for us.
Yes.
Well, not for me, but for everybody who updates it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. If you have topics that you want to hear about, please reach out and let us know. We want to know what you might be looking forward to hearing about. If you heard something in this general update and you want more in-depth information, reach out, ask questions. And as always, we thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you aren't already, follow us on Facebook at City of Crawfordsville Official, on Twitter at City of Seaville, and on Instagram at City of Crawfordsville. We hope you have a wonderful day and can't wait for you to join us next week.